AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on a Friday morning. We're actually recording this interview on a Tuesday afternoon. Mike, we're joined by a very special guest in studio. For the first time in the history of PM in the AM, we have the sitting mayor in studio, the mayor for the city of Brockton, Miss Linda Balzotti. Linda, good morning.
Good morning.
I say good morning, but we're recording this in the afternoon. How weird is that?
That's okay.
You played well with it theatrically, didn't she, Mike?
She did. She did well. You're a pro.
She did well. Linda, running for mayor for your third term, seeking re-election in the general election, which takes place in early November. You've been in the political game in Brockton since the mid to late 90s. You kind of cringe as I said political game. What got you first interested in politics in the city of Brockton? You first ran in 95, first became a city councilor in 97.
Well, my first really foray into politics was when I was a kid, and my mom was very politically active. So I was very politically active then. Then I went to college. I came back. I worked for the cable company up the street as a news reporter. So at that time I could not become politically active because we all had to remain objective. But once I was through working there and went into PR, I started to support some candidates and do some work. Became very engaged in the community again as an adult, and there was some opportunities, some open seats became available, and I found that that would be a great way to make a difference, which would be to run for public office and be able to do something positive for the community that pretty much raised me in a way and gave me an education and allowed me to go on to Syracuse University. And so that was kind of my whole goal, was to just try to help and give back and really kind of contribute in public service. That's why I guess I cringed a little when you said political life, because I like to think of it as public service, and what it's really supposed to be all about is helping people. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Now, you went from being a Ward 4 city councilor to ultimately a council at large to being the mayor of the city of Brockton, the position which you hold right now, seeking your third term. Why are you seeking re-election? What makes you want to do what many consider to be a thankless job at times?
Because it is all about helping people, and we're in the midst right now in the city of a number of projects that have been started over the last couple of years. We have the Trinity project, the $100 million project in downtown. We have Jason Corb's project that's just finishing Station Lofts. We have Crown Linens is currently building a big office and plant on Oak Street. And there are just a lot of things going on. We have the potential for some work to be done at City Hall Plaza, some infrastructure work to be done on Main Street and downtown, work that's going to be done on Pleasant Street, hopefully next year work on West Elm Street. And there are just a lot of projects that I would like to see completed, and I would like to be part of that. We were part of the beginning of them, and I'd like to see them through to the end. And in order to do that, I need to be reelected. But beyond that, it still goes back to what I talked about in terms of running for office, and that is to be able to help people. There are some days that I will not, are very frustrating, and there are some days when you can't help people as much as you'd like to. But there are other days when you accomplish some wonderful things for people and really help them out and have good conversations with them and be able to take care of them and be able to support your community. And those are the days that I'm, rewarding. So it's a mix. It's tough some days and good other days. But in the end, you get to do something positive for a community that gave you so much. So, I've been here my whole life, other than 4 years I went to college. I tell people all the time I live on Oak Street. My burial plot's on Carey Street, so that's about as far as I'm going. It's just wonderful to be able to give back.
Now, just a few weeks back, the preliminary election was held in the city of Brockton, and the field of 4 for mayor was narrowed to 2. It was you, Bill Carpenter, Chris McMillan, and Ron Matta. Ron Matta finished in 4th. Chris McMillan finished in 3rd, so they are no longer in the running for mayor in the general election. Your opposition will be Bill Carpenter, who's been a Ward 5 school committee member in recent years. What do you think separates you from your challenger, Bill Carpenter, heading into this general election in November?
Well, I think the biggest issue that separates us is the power plant. Mr. Carpenter supports the power plant, and I oppose the power plant. I think that's the biggest difference. We have concerns about some similar issues, public safety and other things, but I think for the most part the issue that separates us is the power plant.
Now, you were a city council seat in Ward 4, which is where the proposed power plant would be. Why the opposition to the power plant?
Well, I'm always cautious now how I answer these questions because, we're involved in numerous litigation suits, so I have to be cautious. But most importantly for me, I believe that plan is not in the best interest of folks based on environmental issues and on health issues. And that area of the city has one of the highest pollution and asthma rates, and I just think that the plant itself will contribute more to those factors, and I just don't think it's in the best interest of and it's not, and actually, air has no boundaries, so all of that will spread to everybody's air, so I shouldn't say that as if the air has boundaries, which it doesn't, but that's my concern, is for the health of not just the residents of Ward 4, but the residents of the entire community.
Now, you mentioned that the main issue that separates you from Bill Carpenter is this proposed power plant. There have been some people who have said that even though you guys may have different ways to reach solutions on different issues outside the power plant, you guys are ultimately working towards the same goal. But this is the one issue where there's really some divide on between you and Bill Carpenter. Some have said that this election will sort of figure out what public opinion truly is in regards to does the city want the power plant or not. Do you agree with that?
I think in some regards it could be that there will be, the voice of people be heard in some ways. But I also would like to think that while I do oppose the power plant, and I know that people support me for that, I believe that some of my support will also come from the fact that I've worked very hard for the last 4 years. We have major development that's going on in the city that wasn't discussed or talked about prior to my 4 years being mayor. We have a great deal of infrastructure work that's being done that wasn't discussed before I became mayor. I think I've worked really hard. I've made an effort to work with all kinds of people in the community. I've reached out. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job, and I know a lot of people say that about their jobs, but this job truly is. I mean, there is nowhere that I go that my BlackBerry doesn't go. That includes on my nightstand at night when I go to sleep, because I do get calls from the police chief or the fire chief in the middle of the night, depending on what's going on in the city. So I believe that I have worked extremely hard, and I would hope that some of those votes will come because I did that hard work and people recognize that hard work, and they recognize that it's not an easy job, and I have given my whole heart to it for the last 4 years.
We're chatting with Mayor Linda Balzotti here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva in studio with Miss Linda Balzotti. Mike?
Yeah, Linda, thanks for joining us. Green energy seems to be the buzzword these days, and with the proposed power plant, which you mentioned, which other ways can Brockton help to reduce its carbon footprint?
Well, I think one of the best examples we have in the city is the solar field project over on Grove Street, which I was very much a proponent of, and actually was the ward councilor as that was being constructed. The city has also utilized solar energy in terms of reducing some of its own costs by there are ways in which the city can guarantee and buy solar power from other proposed solar projects, and it allows us to take some of our energy and get the savings from these solar projects, because the solar projects receive credits as they're built, and it helps us to reduce our costs. We've done, I think, one of those. Have we done one? One or two. So that's helpful. I'm not sure, and I think there could be more, more possible construction of solar across the city. The wind potential, I'm not really sure about, because wind turbines are so hard to locate. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't look to see if there are some appropriate areas in the city where they might be able to be located and not be problematic. But I think solar, there's still probably some spaces where we might be able to do solar.
Now, your challenger, Bill Carpenter, in this general election in November, there are some similarities between you and him from a background perspective. You have a background in Brockton media, having worked at the cable station. Bill has dabbled in radio quite a bit over the years, including at this very station, AM 1460, the old one, at 60 Main Street. You got involved in politics in the city on the ward level as a city councilor. He got involved in city politics as a school committee member, and you worked your way up to mayor. He's going from school committee to mayor. Do you think that he has the experience necessary in order to hold the seat of mayor in Brockton?
I think where there might be some lack of information or skill, or however you might say it, is that he's more familiar with the school department side of the budget. I don't know that he's ever seen the municipal side of the budget, and I don't know that if he is aware of the confines of some certain aspects of the budget. But the two sides are very, very different. The school department side or the ed side receives a lot of funding from the state, and that funding tends to increase, whereas the municipal side of the budget, we do not see the kind of increases that the ed side sees. And so I think that that might be one of the major differences between us, because as a city councilor, every year you review the municipal side of the budget and you have the opportunity to learn about the municipal side of the budget. So that might be an area where I think my experience is different and in some respects maybe better.
With your background as a television news reporter in Brockton, back when I believe was Continental Cablevision,
Correct.
if I'm not mistaken, Bill Carpenter has a background in Brockton South Shore Radio, predominantly working at the old WBET, which ultimately became WXBR. Did you guys ever cross paths, and what exactly is your rapport prior to running against one another for this mayor race?
Our Mr. Carpenter and I were not that familiar with each other. I think we each knew each other through the community. We didn't really spend a lot of time together or anything like that. Obviously, we know each other now because he serves on the school committee, and I'm the chairman of the school committee as mayor. And I think our relationship is relatively cordial. We serve together well. There's not any animosity or anything. So, but we don't hang out together or anything.
It has been pretty cordial, and we've seen some races in the past where there's a mayor and a challenger going at it where it hasn't seemed cordial, and I think to myself, how can you guys not critique each other on a professional level where innately on a personal level you don't feel a little slighted?
Well, I think what's happened is, we had a preliminary, so we had 4 people, so it's kind of a mishmash, but now that it's gotten down to 2 people, as we begin the debates, it might get a little bit more heated, or the conversation might get a little bit more heated. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Once again, we're chatting with Linda Balzotti here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You mentioned that he might be more familiar with the budget on a school level as opposed to the city level. Where, in your opinion, is he going wrong on some of his views about how to handle the city financially?
Well, he has referenced the fact that he would, the possibility of using water and sewer money. And you can't do that. Those are in enterprise accounts. They can only be used for water money for water infrastructure, sewer money for sewer costs. You can't use those for general fund costs. You can't use them to hire firefighters. You can't use them to pay employees in City Hall. You can't use it to hire more police officers, that kind of thing. And in terms of, public safety, et cetera, it seems there's been a discussion about raising new revenues, but they seem all to be related to the building of the power plant. There also seems to be some discussion about that he can just negotiate the power plant without the support of the city council. He's just going to be able to come in and do that, and that's not true. I mean, depending on how the power plant gets approved for cooling, you have to go to the council for that. So he's not going to be able to do it without the council. He's not going to be able to go in day one and say to the power plant developers, okay, we're going to just dissolve all of this and you go right ahead and build. First of all, they haven't even gone through their full permitting process yet, but he can't do that. He's also talked about the fact that if the power plant comes, that he will negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes proposal, and he'll get mitigation money, and he'll take care of different things with mitigation money. Well, he can't accept all of that without approval by the council. So he's publicly said on another radio station that he doesn't need the council, he doesn't need to work with the council, but I don't think he understands that a lot of what he wants to do is going to require acceptance by the council, or else it's not going to be able to be done.
Recently, you requested, which the City Council approved, about $3.6 million to be taken out of the city's stabilization fund to pay for the firefighters' contract. With the police also needing a contract, where do you expect to find that money from? There's probably, $2.4 million left in the fund?
Yeah, and first of all, we haven't completed negotiations with the police department, so I'm going to be very cautious about what I say. But I always said, quite frankly, in public, I said before the council all the time that some of that stabilization fund we knew was going to have to be used to settle contracts. I've never hidden that. Mm-hmm. And what just happened in Boston with the police department going to arbitration and the decision that came out, I think validates what I said before the council the other night in terms of trying to resolve in our own community with our own collective bargaining those kinds of issues, because when you go to arbitration, the arbitration award always comes back much greater than you anticipated if you could do it locally. So we will continue those negotiations. If we have to use, we may have to use that money. I'm not saying that we won't, but we have to first complete the negotiations.
Now, Bill Carpenter has been a proponent of the idea of the city of Brockton purchasing the Aquaria desal plant, which currently, correct me if I'm wrong, the city is paying annually in excess of $6 million a year to this plant, not drawing any water from it and not seeing any financial return in their $6 million yearly investment. What are your thoughts on his idea of purchasing the plant?
The only way that would ever work is if when you were able to purchase it, that you were able to purchase it at a price that would help the ratepayers, meaning that you could get it to a price low enough that that money that we're currently spending would either cover it or it would even be less than that so that the ratepayers could get some relief. Otherwise, it's not worth doing, I don't think. I think whatever you do, it needs to provide relief to the ratepayers.
So is it possible that it would provide relief? Is it possible to get it at that price?
That I don't know, because the company put so much money into that whole project in terms of permitting and construction that I don't know. I know as of right now, the answer to that is no. We've had some preliminary discussions. We know sort of right now what kind of price they're interested in, and it's not a price that helps out the ratepayers at all.
Now, outside of the idea of purchasing the plant, one place where you and him seem to differ is that you say you've had legal teams review the contract that the city has with the plant, which requires the city to pay, like I said, $6 million about a year to the plant without seeing any financial return for the investment or drawing a drop of water. You say that's an ironclad contract. He says that he has legal teams that have reviewed the contract and say it's not. Why the division there?
I don't know if his legal team that's looking at the contract is a legal team that's experienced in municipal law or not. The outside legal counsel that we hired is one of the top municipal law firms in the state. So that may be the difference. I don't know who his legal team is, so I don't know how to really address that. I know who our legal team was, and I know that they are very, very experienced in municipal law. And so I respect the information that they gave us.
Who was your legal team, and how many different legal teams took a look at the contract?
We had our inside legal team take a look at it, and then we had an outside legal team from Newburyport led by an attorney named Lisa Mead.
Now, you're seeking re-election in November. How much longer do you want to be mayor for Brockton? Outside of just 2 more years, clearly.
That's a difficult question to answer, but there are a lot of projects that I want to see through, and I don't want to give myself a drop-dead date because I've learned in the last several weeks that when you give out dates and then something doesn't happen, you get yourself into trouble. I gave out a possible date for the air quality monitoring system to be placed, and we didn't meet the date, and then I got into a little trouble. So I'm not going to give out any dates other than to say that I do have a plan of how long that I would like to serve, and I hope that I'm able to do that, and I hope that the city continues to prosper during that time.
During your first 2 terms as mayor, what are a few things that you're proud of that you've accomplished?
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that we did almost $36 million worth of renovation and work on school properties, and it only cost the city about $7 million because $28 million of it came from the state. I'm very pleased that we have several really great projects going on in downtown right now. One, the 4-acre, $100 million Trinity project that's going down the line. The completion of Jason Korb's project also that he's building, Station Lofts, is almost completed. I'm very proud of Bernardi Auto. I'm very proud of Market Basket. Our scores on the MCAS tests are continuing to improve, so I'm proud of that. So there's a lot to be proud of during the time that I've been here. We have created savings on the trash contract. We've created some savings on ambulance contracts. So we've had some very, very positive gains in the city over the last 4 years, and I am very proud of those.
And as you seek re-election for your third term, what are some things that you hope to accomplish which you have not yet?
I think the biggest thing that I want to work on is the continuing development of downtown. We do have really 2 great projects, but we would like to bring some developers in and really try to spur that downtown economic development. So that's one thing. We want to start trying to work to begin on doing translation of some of our documents in terms of building, how you get building permits and things like that to try to help. We have a growing Cape Verdean business community, and we want to try to work with them to make it easier for them to be able to open their businesses. They have some very successful ones. So we want to work to try to do some of those kinds of things and continue to work on the quality of life issues that impact people's neighborhoods. So those are the things that we want to keep working on.
You mentioned downtown Brockton, and I feel like the term revitalization of downtown Brockton has been a term that has been mentioned every election year in the city of Brockton for as long as I can remember. What can be done to, quote-unquote, revitalize downtown Brockton?
Well, I think you have a couple of things going on right now, but the biggest key, I think, will be the Trinity project when they break ground and begin to construct, and then we can bring other developers into downtown to show them that there's a public-private partnership of $100 million going on in downtown on a 4-acre lot, and what a great thing that is, and to have people dovetail off of that.
And what is that project for those who are not familiar?
It is a combination of housing, retail, and commercial space. It will go from Main Street to Montello and from Center to Petronelli Way. It takes up 4 acres. It'll probably take about 3 years to be constructed in its entirety, and there will also be a parking garage as part of it.
It's in the old spot at 60 Main Street.
At the old spot, at your old home base, yes.
Well, there you go. I did not know what was being done with our old home at 60 Main Street.
Yep. That's it.
Well, Linda, I want to thank you so much for joining us in studio here today. We would love to have you on again at some point, whether it be before or after the election, no matter what the results are, and we hope you accept our invitation.
Thank you. Be glad to do that.
That is Linda Balzotti joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. We're going to step aside for a quick breather. Mike's going to bring us a local news update, and then following news, we're scheduled to be joined in studio by Bill Carpenter. So stick with us here on the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM.